The Devil Blues by I Knew a Man on AO3. Episode 17. Chapter 11. Hostage Situation. After about an hour and a bit, the creaking of the door handle breaks the careful quiet of the room. Two people enter the room, carrying sets of boxes. They make sure to close the door behind themselves, before splitting up and approaching each hostage. The person, a girl with golden hair, held up into two pigtails, sits herself down before Izuku. He watches as she opens up the box to reveal a hot meal, rice and curry. It doesn't look to be warm, no steam wafting from the box, but the sight is appealing enough to have Izuku's stomach gargling. Sorry, he says absentmindedly, before inwardly kicking himself for apologizing to his kidnappers. The girl smiles up at him, eyes gleaming with something hidden. It causes a shiver to run down Izuku's spine. It's unpleasant. She reaches underneath the box and pulls out a spoon, which she uses to shuffle the rice about. Izuku takes the opportunity to peek over to Shinso. He finds him in the very much same position as himself, and an added bonus is that his mouth cover has been pulled down. Izuku doesn't have much time to rejoice before his chin is pulled back to face the girl before him. She's holding up a spoon of rice in front of her face. Her cheeks are flushed. Izuku feels his discomfort increase at the sight, but his hunger regains supreme. He gingerly opens up his mouth and allows the girl to push the spoon inside. That's it, she whispers, reluctantly. Izuku flushes further. Her tone of voice makes him feel extremely out of his depth. He doesn't like it at all. You like it, sweetie? Izuku averts his eyes, choosing not to reply. He's far too embarrassed. He feels humiliated and disgraced, and she's done nothing more than feed him a spoonful of rice. The sound of the spoon knocking against the box has him peering up again. The girl is shuffling the rice about again, getting ready to feed him another spoonful. They're wearing earplugs. At first, Izuku doesn't register the words. The girl's mouth hadn't moved, which is cause for confusion until he recognizes the drawing voice. He glances over at Shinso, only to find him staring down at his food, as he munches away. Izuku frowns at the sight. Maybe he had been imagining it. Suddenly, Shinso's feeder looks down at the plate to scrape up another spoonful, and Shinso instantly locks eyes with Izuku. So my quirk doesn't have effect on them. Understanding instantly dawns on Izuku. That's genius. Or, it's not genius, but it plays in their favor. If they talk in between mouths full of food, or when their feeders aren't looking at them, then they would be able to hold a conversation plainly. It's almost too good to be true. Izuku almost says something in reply, when once more his chin is tilted back towards the girl. She holds up another spoonful of rice, and some curry this time. She continues smiling, that eerie smile, pushing Izuku further and further towards uneasiness. Still, he can't decline the food coming his way. Firstly, because he's hungry, and secondly, but more importantly, because he needs to continue being fed if he and Shinso are to hold a conversation for as long as possible. Izuku haltedly opens his mouth and allows the girls to push the spoonful past his lips. Her face erupts into an even wider smile that has goosebumps earing across Izuku's skin. It's unnatural, so unnatural. He bites down, the bile rising in the back of his throat, and strews through discomfort. What I've seen so far is that only 3 people have quirks. Shinso cuts in suddenly. The man continues to sneak his way through the conversation, with Izuku in between bites of food. Each sentence is short and concise, long enough that the feeders won't get suspicious of the 2 hostages exchanging words with each spoonful. One can turn people into dust when he touches them. He's a leader. Shinso chews his food, dejectedly, until his feeder looks away. Another can deal with metal. There are several moments when he is forced to deal with the food in his mouth, until finally, the feeder looks down. The last one can teleport and create teleportational holes. Izuku is careful with his reply. He watches his feeder closely, avoiding her dazed gaze, waiting for an opportunity. He thinks of what to say while chewing on his food, and once she looks away, he quickly asked, "How long have you been here?" "I don't know. Not long." That dialogue is painfully slow. Limited, but at least there is dialogue. "Are you okay?" Izuku inquires. For now. Did they do anything to you? Not yet. They won't come after you either. Izuku frowns. Why not? They don't know who you are. You're nothing important. Izuku mulls over the statement. It could potentially play in his favor. If he's not important to the gang, then they won't bother with him. However, if he's not important to them, they could just as likely simply kill him off and dump his body in a skip. Izuku has no way of knowing where he lies. He continues whacking his mind with the newfound information he's received. If there are only 3 people with quirks, at least who Shinso knows of, then it's likely that the group who kidnapped Izuku was not one of them. They had to have used what he presumed was a knife to threaten Izuku into coming with him. There had been no way of any teleportation, any metal-related incidents, nor any dust activity. Furthermore, from the little bit of conversation Izuku had overheard being tousled into the room, sounded like someone being yelled at. More specifically, his kidnapper being yelled at. Now, Izuku can't say for sure who the person doing the yelling was, but he thinks that it's either someone of high ranking than the kidnapper, or one of the 3 quirk users. A spoonful is pushed past his lips, pulling him from his thoughts. His eyes jump down to the girl, who slowly drags the spoonful back out with a coy expression. Izuku's fists clenched where they're bound. He really cannot explain how uncomfortable this person makes him. The girl scrapes the spoon against the box as she picks up the remaining of the food. Izuku suddenly clocks onto the situation. He wastes too long divulging his thoughts that he had completely forgotten about what limited time they had left to converse openly. He hurriedly asks Shinso, "Do you know what the leader looks like?" Shinso gives him a small nod in reply, as he speaks around mouthfuls. He's got a severed hand over his face. A what? He doesn't receive an immediate reply. The sound of the boxes being lidded up again signals the end of their chat. Izuku sits in tense silence, as both feeders scatter up their stuff and rise to their feet. He watches them as they make their way for the door. He listens out with a keen ear, and once he's certain that they departed, and not hovering outside the door, he quietly asked, "Do you know much about the quirk users?" Shinso's brows draw together momentarily before he shrugs lightly. "The one who deals with metal," Izuku presses. "Can they deal with all metal?" At that, Shinso gives a nod. "Even metal they haven't touched." He receives a shake of the head as a response. "But definitely metal they have touched." When Shinso nods, Izuku follows up his question with, "Even from a distance?" The nod he gets in reply, for that lulls Izuku back into thinking mode. Shinso has provided him with some very relevant, very explicit piece of information. There's so much that Izuku can work with, but he's not sure whether he'll be entirely correct in his assumptions. He could keep asking Shinso questions, but with the way that Izuku has to keep guessing what the man is saying, it could lose them precious time. He needs to go about this in a different way. One where they can still communicate successfully, but not be halted by guesswork. "Okay," Izuku states. "Okay, I will be thinking aloud, as in rambling. If you think I'm onto something, remain silent. I mean, like, listen, don't do anything. But if you think something is completely wrong, just bang your foot against your chair again. Sounds alright?" Shinso nods in agreement. Izuku returns in a determined expression. "Right, well, let's start with the metal quirk user. You said that they had to touch a metal object in order to work with them. The post box at the hotspots were all metal. That means that the metal user had to interact with the post box at some point. I imagine they stake out neighborhoods to see if they were safe to use as a drug deposit location. And if they were deemed usable, then the metal quirk user would familiarize themselves with the post boxes. However, that's something that we, the police, wouldn't have been able to pick up on, since we only started scouting post offices once they become active. We have no idea of knowing who the metal user is. But at least now I know the Namada gang received their alerts about the drugs. As to how they were able to successfully deal the drugs to their clients, well, obviously the teleportation quirk user, but how?" Shinso suddenly kicks his foot against the chair. Izuku whips his head towards him. "I'm wrong." He receives a rapid shake in response. Izuku frowns at the action. If he wasn't wrong about his conclusions, then why would Shinso interrupt with his banging? Perhaps he was trying to tell Izuku he was in error, but more trying to help? You... you know something? Shinso nods several times in quick succession. Fuck. Izuku sighs as he tries to think. The teleportation quirk user. Is something about them, isn't it? Shinso nods, intensifies. And it's about what they can do. Again, he receives a big nod in reply. Izuku tilts his head to the side as he tries to wrap his mind around the possibilities of the quirk user. Can they teleport to places they've already been in? Shinso hesitates, but nods vigorously. So, Izuku starts slowly, mind piecing together the little bit of information he'd been given with the exploitation. So, they can teleport to places they've already been. So, can the metal quirk user. That means that it's highly likely that both of them would have visited the hotspot before they became active, just to sort of build up connection with it, for when their operation went back into play. Now, that would solve how it reaches the public, and also explain why the letters were still reaching their destinations. We also got the metal quirk user and the teleportation quirk user's roles figured out, so that leaves us with the leader. They must be the leader for a reason, although I don't know if that's limited to what their quirk can do or what they can do as a person. Did you learn anything about the leader from your time he... A sudden rumbling shakes the ground. Izuku levels Shinso with a raised brow. What was that? Shinso returns the expression, looking equally as out of depth as Izuku feels. Shinso slowly shakes his head as he shrugs his shoulders. Another shaking follows swiftly after the first. Explosions can be heard in the distance. Izuku throws Shinso a wide-eyed look. This... what? There's a loud booming, followed by shouting. Suddenly the door is blown off its hinges, and hits Izuku straight, punching him against the wall, and splitting into cracked pieces. The force has him hitting the back of his head, and tilting his chair over into a fall. Izuku lands awkwardly, and painfully on his side, arm twisting so bad it strikes a yell out of him. Hands are suddenly on him, as a voice demands. Are you alright? Izuku's entire body seizes up. Bakugo? The one and only. Izuku angles his head, so that he could clumsily peer up at his savior. Suffocating smoke wafts around, clinging to the very being. But though he can make out the shape of none other than Bakugo, his mind is panicked at the sight, so sure it must be an illusion or quirk of some kind. But when he hears some very familiar yelling in the distance, he snaps back to reality. Is that Ochako? The whole motherfucking gang's here. Bakugo murmurs as he rights up Izuku's chair. Izuku winces at the action, and that reaction seems to soften up the movements. He feels drowsy, like he's not fully awake. Glancing to the side, he sees a large figure holding over Shinso, working behind the chair. He blinks slowly at the sight. Sarge? Shit. Bakugo curses. Izuku feels a touch to the side of his head. He gratefully turns his head back to the man before him, just in time to see his hand come back with blood. Izuku stares at the hand for what feels like an eternity, before mumbling, Oh, that's not good. No shit, that's not good. Bakugo hisses as he drops to his knees. He braces Izuku in a warmth, arm on each side of him, voice firm and steadily as he asks, You with me, Deku? Izuku shakes his head. It feels as if he's been drenched in a mole-less, and his movements have been slowed down considerably. Bakugo curses. Not the answer I needed. Come on, Deku. I asked if you're with me. Izuku's eyes start to droop, shutting out the image of Bakugo's alarmed expression. Fuck, no, don't close your eyes! That's the last thing he hears, before succumbing to the darkness, in a sharp, motherfucker! So, apart from Izuku being saved and all that, also, League of Villains, I'm gonna place a theory that the reason why they found them so motherfucking quickly is because of Uraraka's spies, her snitches. One of her snitches being a blonde girl with pigtails. Well, they should be messy buns, but for some reason they're pigtails. You know, just saying. Just saying. But, I have been informed by a fan, in my comment section that this has untagged smut. Yeah. I love untagged smut. I do not. This is a sarcasm. I'm already so far into this, I'm not just gonna delete the whole series and start over. Like, I will be more careful from moving on forward. If it says explicit, I will read the story beforehand. And if it does not say explicit, it should fucking say explicit. But yeah, this is what I hate. It's literally nowhere in the tags. The only way you could have guessed it is the explicit rating. But again, explicit does not mean that there's smut. Explicit just means that this is for adults, right? It's adult content, which could, with the Detective AU, be like, okay, does not necessarily mean that there's smut because smut is not tagged, but Detective AU is tagged. This is a police fanfiction. Therefore, I thought, oh, okay, there's just gonna be really gruesome deaths or gruesome depictions of gore and death and stuff like that, which would explain why someone would title it as explicit. I know for a fact that I have a fanfiction that I'm most definitely gonna have to put in explicit, because it's a horror fic. And it is explicit in the sense that literally somebody's insides are gutted out, and it is explained. So, yeah, no. Quite literally, that would be titled explicit. But that does not mean that there's smut in it. There's no smut in it. In fact, apart from all the gore, it would probably be PG-13, right? It would be teen and up. Or here in, in AO3, it would be teen and up. But because of so much gore that there is, I would have to forcefully label it as explicit because I'm sorry, that is adult content there. That is very much adult suited content. Like, yeah, I don't think, yeah. It's why certain horror movies, although they don't have anything like sexual in them or something like that, they have to be they're put rated R because of the gore that is shown, because that's how it functions. So I was under that impression, but apparently the last chapter is all smut. Let me check that chapter. Yep, it is literally just, all right, we start off. All right, do we end it? Okay, no. No, it's literally just all smut. Okay. So you guys are not getting a chapter 13. Yeah, you guys are not getting a chapter 13. Yeah. No chapter 13 for you guys. Sorry, not sorry. Alright, moving on. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.